But our players are already in our feature match here for this Prowess Mirror, so let's head on down. Now, Nathan,
So
you were talking... Sorry?
Go ahead, Mason.
I was going to ask you, we were talking about the matchups here. This one, it is a pure mirror. They're both playing the exact same 75 cards. Besides winning the dice roll, what do you think matters the most in this matchup, Nathan?
My intuition is that the matchup is largely going to come down to one who has the large number of threats. So looking at this hand, like the onus is actually on Dingo to draw a threat because it's pretty likely that Martin is going to attack the Soulscar Mage and leave Dingo with just a handful of more reactive spells. But typically, I would expect that the matchup is going to be very swinging and back and forth. So until we get to a spot where a player is comfortably ahead, there's a lot of draw steps that can change the matchup.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's a lot more dynamic than it might seem, at first blush here, especially with a hand like this where, Martin kind of came in the controlling role, right? Has double bolt, able to maybe fight off the first couple threats Dingo plays here. And we are going to see Martin bolt down the Soulscar Mage, bobble Dingo, get a little look at what's to come.
And I'm sure that when Martin makes that play, he's immediately just thinking, no mutagenic, no mutagenic, no mutagenic.
Yeah.
But in the clear for that one. And no second land for him, but still, I gotta say, I kind of like Martin's position if he can fade a creature this turn, facing down a surveil land and an extra draw step.
Yeah, if Martin can pick up a land here and just plot this slick shot, we might see, the game end on the following turn. As it looks like Dingo fetches with his surveil land, puts a Monstrous Rage in the yard, and picks up Swift Spear.
Yeah, Swift Spear is nice here. I mean, the only fear I would have with the Swift Spear is it's not hitting for that much. Like, it does get in maybe for extra damage with scale up. If we calculate all of these burn spells together, though, it's not going to represent a ton of damage here.
Mm-hmm.
So still needs a little more to push through the finish line.
Yeah, we kind of see the combo split between both players, right? Assault Strobe is sort of the card that this Gruul deck is looking to combine with Scale Up to get that huge burst of damage. And, both players has part of it, but not the whole combo available to them. We see Dingo decide just to attack for one. Martin doesn't want to bolt it during the combat step. That's a good way to take extra damage. Is now debating it on his end step here.
Yeah, I mean, instinctively, you know that Dingo didn't have access to mutagenic growth previously, and so he's almost for sure going to have some other cheap interaction spells. He did nothing on turn 2, but maybe your mana's taxed enough that you're just going to say, okay, I'm happy to trade this off for a pump spell so I don't potentially die if I want to plot this slick shots. So yeah. I like this decision from him.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And we're going to see this bobble trigger happen. And we got it on the draw step with the mountain. So now Martin has a couple plays available to him, but most importantly, that second land.
I kind of like the idea of casting it, like just coming from the sense of, oh, well, I have mutagenic growth to protect it. The main issue I see with it is it's really your entire game plan. So even if Martin faces like 2 lightning bolts or something, it's a pretty big issue.
Yep. We're gonna have to see how Martin wants to play around this here. You see, it's taking a moment, like you mentioned, could plot, and then on the next turn, you see him counting here. Like, okay, if I go mutagenic growth, lava dart, assault strobe, flashback, is that lethal? And I think he's done the math as it is. So he's gonna tap out and sort of say check to Dingo, and can Dingo draw this assault strobe? Oh, we have DRC.
At the very least, DRC could represent a blocker for Slickshot Show Off if you can get Delirium. So that's kind of nice. Like with the scale up and the lava dart, both sides allow you to get 3 cards deeper in your deck. Also, it's not like Martin can easily kill a 3/3, so that's a pretty big plus here. He might have to slow down a bit.
Yeah, and we see Dingo pack in 4/7, has that Delirium online with his DRC, left a card on top, and picks up Underworld Breach for his turn. Interesting spot.
One thing that I'm sure Martin's considering here is the fact that he's going to face a force attack from the DRC next turn, meaning that if he waits a turn and can survive, then suddenly he can threaten lethal again like he wanted to this turn.
Okay. I like it.
And if he can use this DRC as a blocker here, he doesn't know about this lava dart or anything. The blocker might be able to buy him that extra time. Combined with the mutagenic growth and the lava dart, which he doesn't really want to use. Maybe he could keep it alive even through this lava dart, but I do expect Martin to hold on to this slick shot show off for a bit longer. No? So I wonder here if his plan is to use the mutagenic growth to push past it.
Yeah, maybe kind of doing a situation where he doesn't want to have to be blocking anything else and just going to eat that there, and then on the next turn set up a lethal push. So Martin has enough things in hand that it will be lethal if it doesn't get blocked, and I think he has to assume it probably will be blocked. Now we're going to see a DRC cast here for Martin. It's going to turn off the potential for lethal.
I like this idea from him. Let's just make 2 blockers. We have the mutagenic growth. The slick shot's going to stay around for a little while, and we can threaten blocks if we might die.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. YungDingo in the end step might do something like Lava Dart if he wants to set up his draw step. We might see it win the main phase with so much mana. I'm curious to see how he wants to play it here. Looks like he's going to go on the end step.
There's some incentive for him to do it on his upkeep so that he gets the scry value while also maintaining the prowess, because he is down 4-0 cards just looking at pure card quantity here. So that tells me that he really needs to push the maximum right now.
Yeah, maybe trying to play around something like a mutagenic growth, hoping that it won't be there to block. And a scale up is the draw step here for Dingo.
The scale up is interesting because the scale up can represent potential lethal with the lava dart, but Martin does have the mutagenic growth to potentially trade off with one of the creatures. So the game might actually slow down if he only takes a chunk of damage from the scale up creature. At least he needs another thing.
Right, we're have to see how this goes. Scale up's going to target the DRC.
How do you feel about the DRC being the creature versus Swift Spear?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of like the idea of going in on the Swift Spear, so you had 2 sort of bigger things hitting, but maybe Dingo doesn't even plan to attack with the Swift Spear. I'm not exactly sure. He is threatening close to lethal if he does and makes a force to block, so I'm not sure. Which do you prefer?
I'm sort of thinking the Swift Spear makes sense because if you put it on the Swift Spear, then Martin is forced to block the is he forced to block Swift Spear? It's 6, 7, 8 plus. Yeah, he's forced to block Swift Spear to not die to the lava dart, or is it 9 points? Yeah, it looks like it's only 9 points. Okay.
Okay, so just a little short there. Yeah, interesting. We'll have to see exactly how.
That makes it even more interesting. Maybe then you decide I'm going to target this DRC, but the blocks on the bigger creature with the slick shot show off are kind of nice now. Like you can trade multiple resources, like a lava dart plus the show off for the DRC.
Yeah, we're gonna have
I
to
don't
see.
hate that.
All right, looks like Martin going to
Well, this is good. This is smart. I missed this.
block here, grows outside of the range without the lava dart going after the slick shot.
Oh, does this not though run into the same issue of your creature's going to die to the lava dart?
I think it does. Yeah, I think Martin could have done something like lava, or sorry, no, I guess he still has the problem. Yeah, either way. So
Right. So this was the incentive to block the DRC so that you avoid this happening, right?
yeah, exactly. And it looked like YungDingo is going to go up a game here, as I don't think there's anything Martin can do with only 2 lands here to actually clear the DRC. Not another lava dart in the graveyard. I guess we could pop the bobble and hit a bolt.
Maybe you bobble, hit bolt, and get lucky, but that's kind of the only card, right?
Yeah. Well, let's get lucky. It's a good plan. It's my A plan. I don't know about you, Nathan. My game 1, my A plan, get lucky. Plan 2, play well.
Yeah, then once they're on the ropes, yeah.
Yeah. Once I've top decked them to death, then I start playing pretty good. And that's the game plan normally. A slick shot show off is the draw step here for Dingo. And a blossoming defense. And we're going to see Martin pick it up. He knows he is defeated. Let's check this out, as this is a 75 card mirror. Both players have access to the same cards. Now, it looks like one of them is grabbing Pick Your Poison, Questing Druids right away, and Snakeskin Veils, as is the other.
One interesting dynamic that you have to balance is having some late game inevitability where you're trading off burn spells and resources while also maintaining the scariness of your pump spells. And so I wonder if being on the play for Martin, he just decides I want to lean into my aggressive elements,
Mhm.
whereas from Dingo's seat, he's like I'm going to be more reactive and board him to pick your poisons,
Mhm.
um, and potentially some number of other card draws. But to me, the pick your poison seems slightly appealing as an answer to the show off if you have worse cards in your deck. Otherwise, the sideboard options are very minimal.
Yeah, I'm curious, what do you think about a braid over pick just so as it hits the other things, or pick being able to hit DRC and slick shot for 1 mana is just good enough?
Braid's appealing too. I mean, you only have 4 bolts in your deck, contrary to like previous red mirrors where you have a lot of burn spells. The burn spells in this matchup don't really kill your opponent's creatures that well. So I can see a braid being a nice upgrade, but you actually sort of have to goldfish. You can't really be super controlling because of your deck not having real interaction.
That makes sense. I All right, I was about to say I don't know which is which because they're the same, but I feel like okay, so it was Dingo on the left there, I think. All right, well, they sideboard a little differently. Makes sense in the play and draw. We have to see exactly how these players end up. It looks like your left screen was Yuza and the right was Dingo. I have to imagine Martin's going to take the play.
Thinking of the
Interesting.
most important cards in the matchup, it does seem apparent that show off is very scary if you're the opponent just because it hits for such large chunks and comes out of nowhere.
Mhm.
What would you think are like the most important elements?
Yeah, I would imagine that it would be Slick Shot and Bolt are the two cards that jump out to me, and then from there, I would could believe like DRC is pretty important just because it like allows you to have a decent sized threat that is harder to block and smooths your draw a little bit. But I could buy just about anything else.
Yeah, I think that the bolts, like you mentioned, and we've talked about a few times, really help with having actual interaction.
Hmm.
The show offs progressively get better just because once you have a lot of mana, you can certainly kill them out of nowhere, whereas no other card in the prowess deck is quite as effective at that role.
Hmm.
And I do wonder, I mean, something like scale up as like a premier pump spell seems pretty scary as well, just because it threatens so much damage so quickly. So curious to
Yeah,
see how the impact of one player drawing a lot of those pump spells plays out.
same. We're gonna see Martin fetch surveil, likes what's on top, and there's the scale up you talked about. So Martin has that available with a slick shot. He can plot this turn,
Yeah.
and being on the play gets to kind of do this and give Dingo a chance to get on board, but knows he will not be able to die on the next turn.
One thing that kind of everyone is aware of as an unspoken rule is you really want to be plotting these slick shot show offs if you haven't played with the card, mostly because the opportunity cost of doing so is you miss out on 1 damage, but the upside is you get to make your opponent's mana so taxed because they have to leave up that mana on your turn and you can play around their removal spell on your own terms. So a huge part
Mhm.
of the card that we've seen recently is just how well it plays in multiples as well, being able to do this double threat thing where your opponent's wasting multiple mana trying to leave a removal for the first copy.
We see a DRC picked up here for Martin. We're probably going to see another plot slick shot, and then could do something like DRC plus bobble, surveil a little bit. Looks like we're going to sequence it correctly. Put
There's
that in
some
there.
upside to holding the bobble just because it represents so much damage with one of the show
Mm,
offs. I almost wonder if Martin just wants to pass entirely and then have a turn where he can do, 5 or 6 things maybe next turn.
sure, that makes sense. So you're valuing the DRC high enough that you're down to like you don't want it to just die off to maybe something like a lava dart or anything like that.
I mean, I think it's okay if it trades for Lavanar like you decided
Mhm.
here. It's not really the most important piece. The biggest argument in favor of playing the DRC is if it trades off for any other removal spell except for Lava Dart, it's super high premium play to make.
Makes sense. Well, it actually ate up a braid, so whew, we talked about it being premium. There it goes. As Dingo now picked up a snakeskin veil, that's going to mean his creature is safe, but we know Martin cannot easily kill it as first blood is drawn here by Dingo in the combat step.
And Martin is threatening a ton of damage here all of a sudden with the 2 slick shots. I mean, we know that Dingo can kill the first copy, but the second copy alone can represent very close to lethal. The main saving grace for Dingo being that this scale up is a sorcery.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, currently one of the slick shots, if we go for it all right here, it's gonna do 7. We're probably gonna see that abrade, like you said, on the scaled up creature if Martin goes for it this turn. Maybe Martin will try and bluff something like a snakeskin veil, but we'll have to see how he wants to play it here. As he is gonna start off with that bauble. Bauble's a lot better when it adds 4 damage, when it turns into a Boros Charm.
Oh yeah, one of the more efficient baubles I've ever seen.
Yeah. We're gonna crack it. Take a look at ourselves, see what the next turn's coming up. Decide if we want to go for it this turn or not. Martin could even push more damage with the Lava Dart. And yeah, you see Martin's holding the scale up right now, forcing Dingo to have interaction. And Dingo is down to go to damage, but Martin's going to Lava Dart first. And Dingo has got to be sweating a card like Snakeskin Veil if he were to go for it here. Representing 10 damage currently. Flashback the Lava Dart. Put Dingo down to 17, tying it up.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. I mean, this abrade is hard to pull the trigger on because it's so scary if Martin has access to 1 mana like interaction spell like mutagenic growth here or that snakeskin veil. But you kind of just have to do it. I feel like it's too much damage otherwise.
Yeah, I feel like the game, if you could counter lethal back, then I feel like maybe you could, not do it. But since we're gonna just basically be attacking for like what best case scenario, like 10 or 11, it does feel sort of like a forced play. And we are gonna see Dingo probably go for it here as he is fetching.
The main issue with not doing it is you expose yourself to losing to a single slick shot next turn with ease. Versus if you kill one, a single slick shot probably isn't enough to kill you.
Yep. Buys you like maybe 2 turns, maybe even 3 if you're lucky.
Martin's and the fetch and response has to be so terrifying to see.
yeah. If you're Dingo, you're like, wait, what's going on? Why do you need the mana?
But just a tap stomping ground so he could F6. I respect it.
Life short, get your value.
Yeah.
We're gonna see Lava Dart here in the upkeep. Looks like Dingo's wanting to take down this slick shot while he knows the coast is clear. I kind of like this play from him.
Well, that's going to make short work of both of the threats. And we also see Dingo drawing another copy of a slick shot shelf, a lot of slick shots this game. That's pretty huge because we've seen the plot now from Martin 3 times over the course of this match, but Dingo drawing his first copy is going to represent close to lethal next turn with the scale up and snakeskin in hand.
Yeah, and Martin picks up a DRC, not a bad draw. I believe we are delirious, so we have that going for us as well. And 2 threats after just losing yours in your deck. That's threat okay-ish. I wouldn't say heavy or light, but you got a normal amount. You could easily whiff. Gotta be pretty happy about that. It looks like we don't have delirium. Excuse me.
Yeah, we're a little short. I think in part because we don't have that sorcery from scale up in the graveyard. So. We are very close. Oh, we also lost the Lava Dart, actually, which was the instant type we needed with the Bauble already being there. So the question is now, does Dingo go for a huge play this turn? Like if he casts a slick shot, cast scale up on it, cast Snakeskin Veil, that represents, I believe, 1 point short, 12 damage, if my math is correct.
I think that sounds close.
Be 6 plus 2 pumps plus Snakeskin Veil counter, so that's
11.
11. Okay,
right. We did it. Let's go. And we're seeing Dingo here. One thing we've seen from Dingo in the past is sometimes in these spots he likes to jam. So I think we're gonna see it happen here.
But jamming here is scary if you were looking at Martin's hand because this scale up represents a lot of damage with a DRC. In fact, it represents 8 damage only though. So it's not the end of the world yet.
Yeah, Dingo's attacking for 11. If Martin doesn't block, he will lose the game. And I gotta tell you, I'm in a tough spot here. Both great players. If I play against Martin, it's Mardu Energy versus Jeskai Control. I'm pretty happy about that matchup, but I also would have played Mardu on all 3 matches today. And sometimes you just want to mix it up, even if it's good for you.
So
There
you're
is.
telling me you're not excited about Mardu as your matchup spread?
I'm excited from a like spike. Ooh, I'm gonna, the odds are in my favor perspective. From the entertainer side of things, it's a shame.
Fair enough. I mean, it does go to highlight how strong that energy shell is. But
Mhm.
looking at this prowess match, this is just a different format than I've been seeing in modern for the past few months or weeks rather. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit refreshing and Martin
Mhm.
showing us just how it's done, top decking Swiftspear for the last point.
Had it, as the kids say.
Always had it.
Never didn't. Keep the good ones
So
on top.
we get a lot more content as a game 3 is coming our way very shortly.
Yeah. And these players were joking about, do we even need to set the full 25 minutes? Maybe we can just put it at 10 or whatever, and it really shows too. There's a lot to think about in these games, even if, the games are condensed when it comes to turns, right? There's a lot of decisions when all your cards are playable starting on turn 2.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is actually a pretty decision intensive matchup. It might look like we're just playing burn, we're playing pump spells and creatures, but the small things matter a ton. And
Mhm.
even in this game, there was a lot of choices from both sides in like turns 2 to 4, where Martin got a slight edge at the end of it, but it wasn't clear, from Dingo's spot, like was he going to win when the 2 slick shots came down? It looked really bad. So really swingy game as well.
Yeah. It looks like, we're seeing a little bit of sideboarding here as we were trying to move it over for you. It looks like Martin took out his scale ups when he's on the draw, or at least is considering it. He's got him pulled to the side here. Interesting to see that. I guess he's just thinking, I need to have a little bit more interaction like we had talked about before. We're seeing at least one get swapped with an Abrade as of right now.
Yeah, I don't mind the abrades. I mean, we talked about earlier, like the effect of lightning bolt, and it's just a 2 mana lightning bolt in this matchup essentially, because you don't want to bolt face so
Mhm.
often, but still a nice mode to have.
Definitely. Great all timer standard card.
All right. What are we thinking of these hands? Man, kind of
Wow.
awkward hands from both sides.
Yeah, they are awkward and powerful hands. Very tempting in these sort of spots.
I mean, you look at Dingo's hand and it's hard not to think, oh, if I draw any land, my hand is perfect.
Mhm. It really is. Here's a question for you, Nathan. If that mountain is, the surveil land, are you keeping in this spot?
Oh, 100%.
I
100.
love it. Same. I got so many looks. My hand's so good. I can miss a turn. I'm fine. I'm on the play. Meanwhile, Martin here, once again, has a pretty good hand and a hand that's really good. It looks like against removal, if he can find it, and has fetch land bobble to maybe even set up a little bit.
But I kind of understand not being super happy with that hand on the draw. The blossoming defenses are quite awkward. Oh,
Yeah.
so Martin's on the draw for this game, which means often he's just going to want to have that interaction spell or a 1-drop from Dingo. So having the lightning bolt is perfect.
hmm Yeah, this looks like a great mulligan to 6 here for Martin. Meanwhile, Dingo decided to, play it a little safe. He's like, hey, I'm playing Martin Juza. I'm going to go to 6, try and get a more reasonable hand. And unfortunately lost all his threats on the mulligan.
We're having opposite problems. The first hand couldn't cast spells. This hand can cast spells, but not the ones you want to be casting.
Yeah, not a great spot to be. So it looks like
I,
Dingo's deciding if he wants to go to 5 or not here. What do you think, Nathan, if you're in this spot?
I'm kind of happy to mulligan to 5 with this hand. I can't help but feel that even if you draw a creature, this hand is not necessarily going to win. And sometimes you just draw your show offs when you're on 5 and you can get over the finish line. So I would be tempted to just mulligan this hand as bad as it feels and start with 6 cards. What do you think?
I have to agree. I think Martin's putting back a land with his hand.
Wow.
And
So
interesting match ahead of us here, Nathan. Blossoming Defense goes to the land to the graveyard off the surveil. Fetch land here for Martin. He's gonna fetch. I imagine we're gonna see this DRC come down.
we must have missed it, but it looks like Dingo actually mulliganed to 5. So
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense why I kept the hand then.
that makes sense. Unfortunate spot to be in, but this is actually one of the more ideal draw steps. The Swiss Beer, meaning that he gets to cast a lava dart, get in a little bit of damage, and have a threat at least that Martin has to answer.
Yeah, great draw step there for Dingo. Martin does not pick up a land, does pick up mutagenic growth. That's going to save his next DRC from a lava dart. But I think he's kind of forced into bolting this Swift Spear.
Yeah, no second land, no way of playing around it. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, listen, if Martin had a second land, he wouldn't have bottomed it. He's Martin Juza. He just wouldn't do it. It'd be, they're going to see the bolt on the Swift Spear. Back to Dingo, draws a bobble. And take a
But
look.
with Martin's decision to bottom the land, he does get the upside of he's going to have threats for a while in this game. He doesn't have to worry about running low on them.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe that was Martin's thought, is that, if Dingo's going down to so many cards, I can afford to have more threats if he just tries to keep an answer heavy hand, and I have all his threats covered with my bolts. They're going to see DRC come on down.
Yeah, what I was going to ask you is, what do you think of him playing out the DRC into the Lava Dart and Graveyard at the very least? He doesn't know about the other Lava Dart, but it does feel pretty bad knowing you're just going to trade a mountain for the DRC.
Yeah, it feels bad. It makes me wonder if he was like, I want to mutagenic growth and try and surveil, and now this one from hand is sort of changing his plans, and he was basically down to do that. I think that I would personally wait one more turn, kind of like you did against the archaeologist in your matchup against Martin, where you got hit a couple turns before you went for the fatal push on kind of a low value threat. I think I would try and give myself one draw step because it's fine, but Martin, definitely someone who has played a lot of Magic and is good at these sort of decisions. So I'm going to default to him.
Yeah, I mean, Martin's probably just thinking to himself, man, I cannot get a land. I'm just one land away from winning the game. Meanwhile, Dingo has no pressure going on yet. And
Mhm.
now that's suddenly changing. With the slick shot show off, we are in business.
Yeah, and we might not see it this turn, but I think Dingo is going to be in a very powerful position on board next turn, especially if Martin doesn't draw a land. Now we're on 8th card in hand, so it's a little hidden to us for a second, but we're going to discard.
Oof.
Oof, that's a tough one. Monstrous Rage hits the bin. Assault Strobe for Dingo off the top.
But there's still that tension of you can't play the slick shot show off into the lightning bolt because you can't double rage it given how the
Classes.
rage counters work.
Yes.
Won't quite work. So a little bit surprising to see him doing this. Maybe he doesn't know about how this interaction works.
He might also just be like, he might just be in the spot where so he's going to try and pump up the Swift Spear, it seems, with the Monstrous
Interesting.
Rage.
So he wants to make the Swiss spear pretty huge this turn.
Yeah, maybe hoping that, the Slick Shot won't be fought over. One thing that is going for Dingo is, Martin only has 1 mana, really insightful commentary on my part, which means he can't do too much, So Dingo can just sort of shove a bunch of damage this turn, right? Like he can Monstrous Rage the Slick Shot if this one resolves and, wants to maybe say, hey, Martin, do you have that bolt? Because if you don't, you're dead. And put him in a really bad spot. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting thing I was thinking from Dingo's spot is if he main phase casts this Monstrous Rage on the Swiss Spear and it resolves, then he can go for Assault Strobe on the Swiss Spear, actually.
Oh,
So,
I really like that. Yeah, and then that would have pushed a ton of damage and really put Martin in the pinch.
so you get 12 damage in if you do it that way.
Yep. And we are going to see Martin fight over the Slick Shot show off.
The tough part here is you don't really want to cast this Monstrous Rage. You just want to hold it in hand to protect your Swiss Spear. So I can imagine he's just going to be a little bit disciplined and hold off for a bit.
Yep. Pushing 5 damage this turn. Martin draws the land. It's a shock land, but it is a land.
Yeah, I
So
mean, there's something to be said about the fact that Martin wants to just trade off the Abrade for the creature, but another spell is super scary. That makes me think like you probably just need to bite the bullet and hope that Dingo doesn't have that spell because otherwise, I can't imagine that this is looking great. I mean, this is the other line. You plot and hope he has nothing, right?
yeah. Yeah, I guess both lines hope that your opponent has nothing, essentially, right? But this line, Martin wins on the next turn with his Assault Strobe.
That is true. It's a great point. He can win
Yeah.
with his assault strobe, but the only issue with that is if Martin faces a lot, like a chunk of damage, but he's not dead to it, then he can't pay his life on mutagenic growth. So there's a lot of small factors that add up here.
Well, that's super lethal. We kind of knew lethal was coming, but you know, off the top of Swift Spear is going to give plenty of prowess triggers. The Assault Strobe is going to double up here. The Monstrous Rage is going to get to go on the new Swift Spear, and this is a ton of damage. Even flashing back the Lava Dart for that had these. And YungDingo is going to battle me in the Jeskai Control Mirror.
How are you feeling about that, Mason?
Well, you know, I'm feeling okay. I play a lot of those kind of ringy decks, but I know that Dingo does as well. The problem is I have not played much as Javier's deck, despite loving it. So this will be my first time actually playing the mirror.